Thinking this carnivore diet was wacky, and I probably would think it's nonsense, but it's as good as I felt in a long time, and it's just 1 month.
So Joe Rogan provided a full month carnivore recap, and his results were, as you guessed, outstanding. He lost, I believe it was 17 pounds. He saw subsiding of his vitiligo, which is a skin condition that's an autoimmune disease. He basically showed that he was totally just had gotten ripped. He had lost a lot of the subcutaneous fat that had been built up in his midsection. His face had gotten thinner. His energy levels had gone up, and he just felt amazing. He wasn't sure how long he was gonna eat this way, which is certainly understandable. It is a restrictive diet, but what's cool about that is you can see what's possible when you actually adjust the diet and you make adjustments. So I think that's really exciting. I'm really proud of people who are willing to take this leap. We've talked about this in my book in length. There are so many people that have so many benefits. I would not be here right now standing in front of this video if I was not able to talk about how much benefit the carnivore diet has brought me in terms of vitality and energy. It's such a powerful tool to just fuel longevity and vitality that I highly recommend it. And you can see some of the critiques. His gut issues went away, quote unquote, explosive diarrhea he was experiencing just kind of shifted. And that's probably a subset or a result of the gut flora change. Again, I talk about this at length as well in my writing. But the idea is that your large intestine, where you deal with more fibrous foods and plant foods, the bacteria in there that it's used to consuming that type of food has to shift and change over. And the small intestine and the stomach and the gut in that part of the area is going to get bombarded with a lot more fat and nutrient-rich food, and your gut has to change over. You have to learn to dial in certain foods and sort of limit the amount of rendered fat you have. So all in all, super stoked for him. It's a great result so far, and I'd love to see what goes on from there. What is going on, friends? Hope you're having a great start to your February by now, I guess. I had recently been kind of following up on some of the most recent updates with Joe Rogan and his carnivore experience. And in this video, I wanted to do a very short but concise kind of recap of his feedback kind of going in and his reports on how he's doing with the carnivore diet. So we're gonna talk about some of the things he's mentioned in some of the recent videos, and then I'm gonna share my feedback on how I think those issues could very easily be addressed. And again, if you have these issues or if you're on the carnivore diet, we have a foolproof carnivore diet roadmap that you can download in the link description, which will give you full access completely free to learn what foods, what ways to do the carnivore diet is going to really help you versus probably harm you and make it much more difficult to transition to eat the best foods. So anyways, let's get into the meat of the video and we will finish up shortly here. Joe Rogan started the carnivore diet on the beginning of the month. He was going to join for basically World Carnivore Month. He's good friends with Jordan Peterson. He really respects Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is one of the main individuals who kind of brought this mainstream about 1.5 years ago when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. Jordan Peterson shared how he had basically had his daughter and the experiences that he'd gone through with his daughter with her autoimmune disease and all the things she has struggled with, from depression to anxiety to joint replacements to just a slew of diseases. And Jordan Peterson himself personally had long-standing mental health issues as well, with depression, and mentally and physically in his recount and sharing with Joe Rogan, he's essentially been able to treat and remove a lot of these issues through his diet. And obviously there's a lot of people out there and a lot of information you can go search about to learn more about the carnivore diet, but his updates are quite interesting. So what he says, major con is he's having incredibly tough, loose stool, diarrhea, and he does not trust his gut from that perspective. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
I'll tell you one thing, I do not trust my butthole at all. When I feel a fart coming on, I'm like, oh, this could be a disaster.
But I want to kind of flash through to some of the points that he talks about in that.
The unquestionable difference of this diet, unquestionable difference, is that my energy level basically has a flat line.
He also mentions that his energy levels have never been this consistent or this long. So throughout the day, his energy is streamlined. And basically he just feels like he has a real high baseline of a great amount of energy.
Your energy level, it's like right here, stays. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm kind of tired, and then I go to sleep.
When he's kind of in discussion and talking about why he's done it, he mentions the Jordan Peterson friendship he has and all the influence that he's had from Jordan and how smart he respects Jordan. He also talks a bit about pre-industrial societies, how I believe the Inuit up in the Arctic were surviving on purely meat and very healthy, and that they also, from the nuances, had to make sure they had fat. So he talks about his nuance within his diet.
There was a guy that was with the Inuit. He was an explorer.
Of how he eats fairly lean game meat like elk and venison, and how he's adding in bacon and tallow and cooking everything in butter and tallow. So here's the challenge. He's got kind of two things going on. From a gut perspective, you have your stomach, your small intestine, and then your large intestine that goes out to your colon. As humans, we have a much smaller gut than herbivores on the end of the large intestine. We also don't have multiple stomachs like ruminant animals such as cattle and buffalo and pigs, for example. So our guts are completely evolved for different types of foods, arguably largely to eat mostly animal foods. When you cook foods like a processed fat such as tallow, you melt it down, it goes from your stomach to your small intestine, and then it gets into your large intestine. Any fat that does not get absorbed in your stomach, does not get absorbed in your small intestine and makes it to your large intestine, which is largely there to ferment and to reabsorb the moisture and the fluids that are left in the digestive process, is going to cause loose stool. Fat should not make it to your large intestine. Once it gets there, for the most part, it's going to cause water to flood into the large intestine, and you're going to see diarrhea. You're going to see cramping. You're going to see gut issues. If you eat fat in its raw, pure form, in its native form, off the animal, or you eat fat that isn't melted down, it's often able to break down more slowly in the stomach and small intestine before it hits your large intestine. He's cooking his foods with huge amounts of tallow and butter, and these are processed, melted down fats that then liquefy very quickly once you put them in a warm human body, or if you cook them in a pan, they're in liquid form. You're gonna give yourself chronic cramping, diarrhea, gut issues when you consume fats like that. I've been there for months. It's a horrible way to do the carnivore diet. It's gonna give you that issue. If you listen to the comments, if you follow some people on that, he'll quickly realize you can adjust that. So again, Joe Rogan, if you're watching this, stop cooking your food in high amounts of liquefied fats. Instead, get yourself high quality suet. Take that elk and get the fat from the elk. Get that bison, get the fat from the bison. When I went to a field harvest here 2 weeks ago, they were throwing all this stuff out. It was free. You can basically, when you're doing a hunt, you can harvest this fat off the animal. Of course, venison, whitetail, some of these more lean deer are not gonna have a lot of that, but you can easily go to a local butcher shop, websites like White Oak Pastures or US Wellness Meats. They source and will sell you these fats for very low cost. They're grass-fed, grass-finished with high vitamin content, and they're a game changer when it comes to gut issues and doing the carnivore diet in the right way. Now, if you're gonna do cuts that are fattier, that can help too. Ribeyes are about 1-to-1 fat to protein calorie intake, so they get that nice kind of 65-70% fat intake to 30-35% protein macro, and you get all the fat in there. And because you're not melting the fat totally down within the steak, people do pretty well with that too, because the fat stays pretty solid in the steak. And then again, when it hits your gut, it's given time within the stomach and small intestine before it passes through those areas to slowly break down. In regards to his energy levels, it makes sense, right? When you're talking about eating more ancestrally consistent in a low carb fashion on a diet such as a carnivore diet, you're essentially going into a ketogenic state. So you're going to be dealing with ketone bodies. They're much more metabolically efficient. You have much more reserves in your body. You are no longer tapping into a limited reserve of glycogen that can be much more quickly depleted from the liver when you're operating from this frame. So it makes total sense. On top of that, when you're eating carnivore, you're getting rid of inflammation, you're reducing autoimmune responses, your body's not getting stressed out by all the plant toxins entering it that it doesn't know what to do with, because these are foreign molecules that plants have created to defend themselves against predation. So you're getting animal foods that are just pure in their form. They don't force your body to convert the nutrients that it wants. You don't have to worry about converting ALA to DHA. You don't have to worry about converting beta carotene to retinol, vitamin D2 to D3. Again, it's metabolically way more efficient for your body. So it makes sense you could tap into your energy reserves and utilize that sort of power within your body to actually focus on what you want, which is cognitive function, athletic performance, because your body isn't stressed out trying to handle first figuring out whether or not these molecules are actually going to kill you or hurt you, and then figuring out how to convert the nutrients within these molecules along with all the anti-nutrients into forms the body can actually use. So there's a whole reason and mechanism behind why this way of eating is so beneficial and why I continually preach and promote it. And it's because it just gives you all the benefits without all these negatives. And yes, I think if you want to reintroduce plant foods and if you really derive a lot of pleasure from eating, and that's a good trade-off that you want to make for how you feel, or something doesn't really impact you and your body is maybe genetically predispositioned to better process that type of food, then go for it. That's totally up to you. Everyone's gonna have a slight difference. We all kind of are like, I think my buddy Paul Saladino was saying, he tends to look at us sort of like the game Plinko on The Price is Right, where when food falls in, the chips will kind of fall, and we're maybe genetically, some of us are more genetically attuned or genetically built to handle lactose, for example, or butter in a certain way. So that's really what's going on here. Overall, he said he lost 7 pounds. He showed his gut. He's lost a lot of the weight in his face, in his stomach area. Again, this makes sense. Your body's insulin levels are lowered. So now your body can tap into all that fat that it's accumulated, that it would only accumulate if you experience some sort of seasonal vegetation in fruits and vegetables, where for the most part, you would have only experienced in short periods of time. You would have been like a bear storing all that energy to feast so you can go into hibernation. Because in the springtime or in the summer, when these plants are sprouting and they're harvesting their fruits, that's when you would have found them. It wouldn't have been a year-round thing, and you would have wanted to pack that on to build up your starvation reserves when you can't find food from an ancestral perspective. So, Joe Rogan, I'm proud of you for going on this. Obviously, it's not the easiest thing to do, but it is pretty simple as long as you understand the nuances. And I hope that the gut issues will clear up and you'll figure that out and realize that you should probably not be eating liquefied fat and bacon, and you should try to get more of a high quality, natural, native source of fat, such as beef fat trimmings, suet, maybe some egg yolks, if eggs aren't triggering for you. Again, eggs can be very triggering, and the quality of eggs can deviate in a large spectrum. Hope that was helpful. If you tuned in, thanks a lot. Let me know what you guys are up to going into February. I've got some really cool videos coming out soon, and the book is about to launch. So if you haven't checked that out, the description and the link is down below. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, like this video, share it with your friends, support by promoting it, and I will see you on the next one.